Hi everyone. Hi, it's Hedda here and Yom Tov. It's lovely to be back among you again. I'd like to say a huge hello and a big welcome to everybody new who's joined us. Hello everyone. You'll find us a great big lovely friendly bunch of people here in the Haven, and I'm sure you'll grow to love us. And hello to everybody who joined in the middle, and hello to everybody who's been here right from the very beginning. It's really great that you've been here for, what is it, 6 months, 7 months that the Haven's been going? Seems like it's been forever, doesn't it, sometimes? Anyway, today is Wednesday's folklore, and I've got 2 stories for you today. Now, I do owe you from last week, so we are a week behind in the schedule. I am sorry about that, but I'm hoping to make it up to you now. And today we've got 2 stories. Might end up going a little bit over time, but hopefully you'll enjoy them and you'll not realise that the time's passing, so quickly if we enjoy them that much. So the first story that I'm going to read to you is by Hans Christian Andersen, and that's called The Emperor's New Clothes. And the second story is going to be a Native American fairy tale. It's actually from a book called the Native American Fairy Tales. It's also known as Indian folk tales. So, and it was written in 1901. So, of course, back in the day, the Native American people were still known as Indians. So, any of my Native American Haveners, that's just to give you some background. I'd never be so disrespectful as to call you by that old name. So, just to give you a little bit of background on that one. And that one's called Iktomi and the Ducks. And there's a little bit of Dakota language in there that I've been practicing. So I hope I don't slaughter it. I'm frightened, and I'm talking to Gunny Molo. Gunny, if you're here and watching today, or whenever you get the chance, forgive me if I end up messing up this line. So, anyway, on to the stories, and I'll start now with, The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen, and I hope you enjoy it. Please sit back and relax. Many years ago, there was an emperor who was so excessively fond of new clothes that he spent all his money in dress. He didn't trouble himself in the least about his soldiers. He didn't care to go to the theatre. He didn't care to go hunting or anything like that, unless it was a time that he bought a new outfit, and then he would happily go along if there was the opportunity. Well, he had a different suit for each hour of the day. And as of any other king or emperor, one is accustomed to say, he is sitting in council. But with this emperor, it was, the emperor is sitting in his wardrobe. I'm sure there's some celebrities we could say that about today, couldn't we? Time passed merrily in the large town which was his capital. Strangers arrived every day at the court, and one day 2 rogues, calling themselves weavers, made their appearance. They gave out that they knew how to weave stuffs of the most beautiful colours and elaborate patterns, the clothes manufactured from which should have the wonderful property of remaining invisible to everyone who was unfit for the office he held, or who was extraordinarily simple in character. These must be indeed splendid clothes, thought the emperor. Had I such a suit, I might at once find out what men in my realms unfit for their office, and also be able to distinguish the wise from the foolish. This stuff must be woven for me immediately. And he caused large sums of money to be given to both the weavers in order that they may begin their work directly. So the two pretend weavers set up two looms and affected to work very busily, although in reality they did nothing at all. They asked for the most delicate silk and the purest gold thread, both put into their own knapsacks, and then continued to pretend their work at the empty looms, until night time. "I should like to know how the weavers are getting on with my cloth," said the emperor to himself, after some little time had elapsed. He was, however, rather embarrassed when he remembered that a simpleton, or one unfit for his office, would be unable to see the manufacture. To be sure, he thought he had nothing to risk in his own person, but yet he would prefer sending somebody else to bring him intelligence about the weavers and their work, before he troubled himself in the affair. So all the people throughout the city had heard of the wonderful property the cloth was to possess, and all were anxious to learn how wise or how ignorant their neighbours proved to be. "I will send my faithful old minister to the weavers," said the emperor at last, after some deliberation. "He will best be able to see how the cloth looks, for he is a man of sense, and no one can be more suitable for his office than he is." So the faithful old minister went to the hall where the knaves were working with all their might at the empty looms. "What could be the meaning of this?" thought the old man, opening his eyes very wide. "I cannot discover the least bit of thread in the looms." However, he did not express his thoughts out loud. The impostors requested him very courteously to be so good as to come nearer to the looms, and then they asked him whether the design pleased him and whether the colours aren't they just so beautiful, and at the same time pointing to the empty frames. The poor old minister looked and looked, but he couldn't see anything on the looms, and for a very good reason, because there was nothing there. "What?" he thought again. "Is it possible that I am the simpleton? I never thought that of myself, and no one must know if I am. Can it be that I'm unfit for my office? No, that mustn't be said either. I will never confess that I couldn't see the stuff." "Well, Sir Minister," said one of the waves, still pretending to work, "you don't say whether or not the stuff pleases you." "Oh, it's excellent," replied the old minister, looking at the loom through his spectacles. "The pattern and the colours, yes, I will tell the emperor without delay how very beautiful I think they are." "We shall be much obliged to you," said the impostors, and then they named the different colours and described the pattern of the pretended cloth. The old minister listened attentively to their words in order that he might repeat them to the emperor, and then the knaves asked for more silk and more gold, saying that it was necessary to complete what they had begun. However, they put all that was given to them into their knapsacks and continued to work with as much apparent diligence as before at their empty looms. The emperor now sent another officer of his court to see how the men were getting on, and to ascertain whether the cloth would soon be ready. It was just the same with this gentleman as it was with the minister. He surveyed the looms on all sides, but could see nothing but empty frames. "Does this stuff not appear beautiful to you, as it did my lord minister?" asked the impostors of the emperor's second ambassador, at the same time making the same gestures as before and talking of the designs and colours, which weren't there. "Well, I'm certainly not stupid," thought the messenger. "It must be that I'm just unfit for my good office. And that's really odd, because I know I am, but no, I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm going to keep this a secret. I'm not going to let anybody know that I can't see anything there. So I know what I'm going to say. So then he looked at the cloth and he praised it, even though he couldn't see it. And he declared that he was delighted with the colours and the patterns. Indeed, your Imperial Majesty, he said to his sovereign when he returned, the cloth which the weavers is preparing is extraordinarily magnificent. Well, the whole city was talking of the splendid cloth, which the emperor had ordered to be woven at his own expense. And now the emperor himself wanted to see it. And he wanted to know what was costing so much while it was still in the loom. Well, accompanied by a select number of officers of the court, among whom were 2 honest men who had already admired the cloth, or so he thought, he went to the crafty impostors who, as soon as they were aware that the emperor was coming, went on working even harder than before, even they didn't pass a single thread through either of the looms. Your Majesty, is this work not absolutely magnificent? Said the 2 officers of the crown. The minister and the soldier had gone up. Look, Your Majesty, isn't it just absolutely marvellous? If Your Majesty will only just please look at it. Look at the design, look at the colours. It's breathtaking, it's beautiful. And in the meantime, they're sort of like nudging each other, thinking, can you see what I see? Because I can't see anything there. And they worked themselves up to such a pitch that they imagined that they could see it. And if they talked about it enough, that everybody would see it. Well, the emperor's looking. And he starts thinking to himself, I can't see anything. This is awful. Does this mean I'm a simpleton? Or does it mean I'm unfit to be the emperor? That would be the worst thing ever. I can't let that happen. I'll have to keep this secret. Nobody must know. So he turned round to both the weavers and he said, oh, the cloth is charming. It has my complete approval. And he smiled most graciously and looked closely at the empty looms, for on no account could he say he couldn't see what his 2 officers of the court had praised so much. He couldn't say, well, if they saw it, and I can't see it, I can't say, what do you 2 mean, because there's nothing there, because they've already both said they've seen it. So I'll say I've said it too, because I don't want to look foolish in front of them. So he stared at the loom and he talked to the weavers and he said how much he loved the colours and how much he loved the pattern and the weave and the cloth and how beautiful it was and how magnificent it was going to be when he wore it. And then all of his retinue crowded round and they're straining their eyes and they're looking at it, hoping to discover something there, but they couldn't see anything. But they looked around and they saw the minister gleaming. Oh, look at this beautiful cloth. And they saw the soldier going, yes, isn't it wonderful? Look at this beautiful cloth. And they've got their own emperor is going, I can't wait to wear this cloth made into a suit. It's beautiful. Look at the colours. They just thought, well, if they can see these things, maybe they can see them. But we're not going to say that we can't see them. So they joined in as well. Oh, how beautiful, Your Majesty. And, Your Majesty, have new clothes made from this splendid material because there's going to be a procession and you need to wear this new cloth made into a suit. You have to do that. Oh, it's magnificent. It's charming. It's excellent. And everybody in the court, oh, it's never seen anything so beautiful. Oh, Your Majesty's going to look fantastic. Can't wait for this to be made into a suit for you. Oh, and you're obviously going to need a cape and a hat and the whole 9 yards. Your Majesty's going to look, the best emperor that ever there was. So the emperor then sort of started preening, and he presented the impostors with the order of knighthood. And he knighted them for creating this cloth that I know and you know isn't really there. But he went ahead and he knighted them anyway, and they got a special ribbon that he put in their buttonholes, and he gave them the title of Sir Gentleman Weavers. Well, the rogues sat up the whole night before the day of the procession, and they had 16 lights burning, so that everyone could see how anxious they were to finish the emperor's new suit. Well, they pretended to roll the cloth off the looms, to cut the air with scissors, and sew with needles that had no thread in them. Oh, see, they cried at last, the emperor's new clothes are ready. And now the emperor, with all the grandees of the court, came to the weavers, and the rogues raised their arms as if in the act of holding up something fancy, saying, "Here are your Majesty's trousers. Here is the scarf. Here is the mantle. The whole suit is as light as a cobweb. One might fancy you're not wearing anything at all." And that's how it's going to feel when you're wearing it, It's so light, you'd almost think you weren't wearing anything at all. And that is the virtue of this beautiful cloth. Well, everyone around says, "Oh, yes, I saw that. Oh, yeah, I knew that. You knew that, didn't you? Oh, yes, I knew that." And the weavers said, "If your Imperial Majesty would please graciously take off your clothes, and we'll put the new suit on you right now in front of this looking glass." Well, the emperor was accordingly undressed, and the rogues pretended to array him in this new suit. The emperor was turning around from side to side in front of this great big mirror. Oh, how splendid His Majesty looks in his new clothes, and how well he fits them. The general cried, "Oh, what a design! What colours! These are indeed royal robes." Makes you wonder what they've been smoking. This canopy, which is to be borne above your Majesty in the procession, is waiting. This was also made of the cloth that is light as spiders' webs, announced the Chief Master of Ceremonies. "I'm quite ready," answered the emperor. "Do my new clothes fit well?" asked he, turning himself round and round before the looking glass, in order that he might appear to be examining his handsome suit. "Oh, yes, I think this looks absolutely perfect. Wonderful." Well, the lords of the bedchamber, who were to carry His Majesty's train, felt about for it on the ground as if they were lifting up the ends of the mantle, and they pretended to be carrying something, for there's no way they were going to say, there's nothing there, because first, they'd have to admit that they were simple, and second, that they were unfit for their office. So they weren't going to admit to that. So now the emperor walked under his high canopy in the midst of his procession through the streets of his capital, and all the people standing by and all the people hanging out the windows cried, "Oh, how beautiful are our emperor's new clothes! What a magnificent train there is to the mantle, and how gracefully the scarf hangs." Because basically, no one was going to say he's not wearing anything, because they weren't going to be simple, and they weren't going to say they weren't fit for their office. So certainly none of the emperor's previous suits had ever made such a great impression as these invisible ones. And then up piped this little voice, little kid in the crowd. And he said, "But the Emperor's got nothing on at all." "Listen to the voice of innocence," exclaimed his father. And what the child said was whispered from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, until everybody started saying and starting to laugh and point. "The Emperor's got no clothes on. He's got nothing on. Where's this mantle? Where's this suit? Where's this scarf? The Emperor's got nothing on at all." And by this point, the people are crying out with laughter, and they're pointing at him and laughing at him. And the Emperor was really, really annoyed because he knew the people were right. But he thought, well, the procession must now go on. And the lords of the bedchamber took greater pains than ever to appear holding up a train, although in reality there was no train to hold. And those two weavers skedaddled with the gold in the knapsacks and the gold and the cloth and all the silks and everything that they'd purloined, otherwise known as nicked or stolen. And they skedaddled damn quick before the Emperor could say, grab those two, toot sweet, and into the dungeons with them. And I think the Emperor realised what a fool he'd been. And that is the end of that. So there is your story of the Emperor's new clothes. And I do hope you enjoyed that one. Sometimes there are some people who, are unfit for office, and they are basically simpletons, and that's nothing to do with anything. That's because they're just not fit for the job. And I don't think we need to look that far when we're looking at our politicians, do we? I think we can look at most of them and say, how on earth did you get to that office? Because you're certainly not fit for it. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed that one. So this leads me on to our next story. And this is a Native American folktale, which is actually about a fairy, a spider fairy. But it's the very first story that this spider fairy is ever mentioned in. There are other stories, but I thought I'd find the first one, and then we wouldn't get confused in the future. Now, it's called Iktomi and the Ducks. I don't know who wrote it. It was just a collection of Native American folk and fairy tales. Obviously, whoever wrote this down either was Native American themselves or it was a dictated story. I don't know. It's over 100 years ago. But thank goodness they were written down, because now we've got them. And apart from Gunny, if we do have any other Native American people here, if there are other stories that you would like me to read or you'd like to tell the rest of us, please do. I would love it if you could do that. And then I'll pin your story and then everybody can read it, because we'd love to hear it. We really would. Anyway, this is Iktomi and the Ducks. Iktomi is a spider fairy. He wears brown deerskin leggings with long soft fringes on either side and tiny beaded moccasins on his feet. His long black hair is parted in the middle and wrapped with red bands. Each round braid hangs over a small brown ear and falls forward over his shoulders. He even paints his funny face with red and yellow and draws big black rings around his eyes. He wears a deerskin jacket with bright coloured beads sewed tightly on it. Iktomi dresses like a real Dakota brave. In truth, his paint and deerskins are the best part of him. if ever a dress is part of a man or a fairy. Iktomi is a wily fellow. His hands are always in mischief. He prefers to spread a snare rather than to earn the smallest thing with honest hunting. Why, he laughs outright with wide open mouth when some simple folk are caught in a trap, sure and fast. He never dreams another life for a life as bright as his. Often his own conceit leads him hard against the common sense of simpler people. Poor Iktomi cannot help being a little imp, and so long as he is a naughty fairy, he can't find a single friend. No one helps him when he is in trouble. No one really loves him. And those who come to admire his handsome beaded jacket and long fringed leggings soon go away sick and tired of his vain words and heartless laughter. Thus Iktomi lives alone in a cone-shaped wigwam upon the plain. One day he sat hungry within his tepee. Suddenly he rushed out, dragging after him his blanket. Quickly spreading it on the ground, he tore up dry tall grass with both his hands and tossed it fast into the blanket. Tying all four corners together in a knot, he threw the light bundle of grass over his shoulder. Snatching up a slender willow stick with his free left hand, he started off with a hop and a leap. From side to side bounced the bundle on his back as he ran light-footed over the uneven ground. And soon he came to the edge of the great level land, and on the hilltop he paused for breath. With wicked smacks of his dry, parched lips, as if tasting some tender meat, he looked straight into space towards the marshy river bottom. With a thin palm shading his eyes from the western sun, he peered far away into the lowlands, munching his own cheeks all the while. "Aha!" grunted he, satisfied with what he saw. A group of wild ducks were dancing and feasting in the marshes. With wings outspread, tip to tip, they moved up and down in a large circle, and within the ring, around a small drum, sat the chosen singers, nodding their heads and blinking their eyes. They sang in unison a merry dance song and beat a lively tattoo on the drum. Following a winding footpath nearby came a bent figure of a Dakota brave. He bore on his back a very large bundle. With a willow cane, he propped himself up as he staggered along beneath his burden. "Oh, who is there?" crawled out a curious old duck, still bobbing up and down to the circular dance. Hereupon the drummers stretched their necks until they strangled their song for a look at the stranger passing by. "Oh, Iktomi, old fellow, pray tell us what you carry in your blanket. Don't hurry off. Stop, halt," urged one of the singers. "Stop, stay, show us what's in your blanket," called out the other voices. "My friends, I must not spoil your dance. Oh, you would not care to see if only you knew what is in my blanket. Sing on, dance on. I must not show you what I carry on my back," answered Iktomi, nudging his own sides with his elbows. This reply broke the ring up entirely. Now all the ducks crowded about Iktomi. "We must see what you carry. You must know what's in your blanket," they shouted in both of his ears. Some even brushed their wings against the mysterious bundle. Nudging himself again, wily Iktomi said, "My friends, it is only a packet of songs I carry in my blanket." "Oh, then let us hear your songs," cried the curious ducks. At length, Iktomi consented to sing his songs. With delight, all the ducks flapped their wings and cried together, "Hoi, hoi!" Iktomi, with great care, laid his bundle on the ground. I will build first a round straw house, for I never sing my songs in the open air, he said. Quickly he bent the green willow sticks, planting both each ends of the pole into the earth. These he covered thick with reeds and grasses. Soon the straw hut was ready, and one by one the fat ducks waddled in through a small opening, which was the only entrance way. Beside the door, Iktomi stood smiling as the ducks, eyeing his bundle of songs, strutted into the hut. In a strange, low voice, Iktomi began his queer old tunes. All the ducks sat round, wide-eyed, in a circle about the mysterious singer. It was dim in that straw hut, for Iktomi had not forgotten to cover up the small entranceway. All of a sudden, his song burst into full voice. As the startled ducks sat uneasily on the ground, Iktomi changed his tune into a minor strain. These are the words he sang. Istokmus wasipo, tuwea ton wanpi, kinhan istanisa sapi kita, which is, with eyes closed you must dance. He who dares to open his eyes, forever red eyes shall have. Up rose the circle of seated ducks, and holding their wings close, began against their sides, began to dance to the rhythm of Tomi's song and drum. With eyes closed they did dance. Iktomi ceased to beat his drum. He began to sing louder and faster. He seemed to be moving about in the centre of the ring. No duck dared blink a wink. Each one shut his eyes very tight and danced even harder. Up and down, shifting to the right of them, they hopped around and around in that blind dance. It was a difficult dance for the curious folk. At length, one of the dancers could close his eyes no longer. It was a Skiska who peeped the least tiny blink at Iktomi within the centre of the circle. "Oh!" squawked he in awful terror. "Run, fly! Iktomi is twisting your heads and breaking your necks. Run out and fly, fly!" he cried. Hereupon the ducks opened their eyes. There beside Iktomi's bundle of songs lay half of their crowd, flat on their backs. Out they flew through the opening Skiska had made as he rushed forth with his alarm. But as they soared high into the blue sky, they cried to one another, "Oh, your eyes are red, red, and yours are red, red," for the warning words of the magic minor strain had proven true. "Aha," laughed Iktomi, tying the four corners of his blanket. "I shall sit no more hungry within my dwelling." Homeward he trudged, along with nice fat ducks in his blanket. He left the little straw hut for the rains and winds to pull down. Having reached his own tepee on the high level lands, Iktomi kindled a large fire out of doors. He planted sharp-pointed sticks round the leaping flames. On each stake he fastened a duck to roast. A few he buried under the ashes to bake. Disappearing within his tepee, he came out again with some large seashells. These were his dishes. Placing one under each roasting duck, he muttered, "The sweet fat oozing out will taste well with the hard-cooked breasts." Heaping more willows upon the fire, Iktomi sat down on the ground with crossed shins. A long chin between his knees pointed towards the red flames, while his eyes were on the browning ducks. Just above his ankles, he clasped and unclasped his long bony fingers. Now and then he sniffed impatiently at the savoury odour. Well, the brisk wind which stirred the fire also played with a squeaky old tree beside Iktomi's wigwam. From side to side the tree was swaying and crying in an old man's voice, "Help! I'll break. I'll fall. Iktomi shrugged his great shoulders, but did not once take his eyes from the ducks. The dripping of amber oil onto pearly dishes, drop by drop, pleased his hungry eyes. Still the old tree man called for help. "Hey, what sound is it that makes my ear ache?" exclaimed Iktomi, holding a hand on his ear. He rose and looked around. The squeaking came from the tree. Then, when he began climbing the tree to find the disagreeable sound, he placed his foot right on a cracked limb without seeing it. And just then, a whiff of wind came rushing by and pressed together the broken edges. There, in a strong wooden hand, Iktomi's foot was caught. "Oh, my foot is crushed!" He howled like a coward. In vain he pulled and he puffed to free himself. While sitting a prisoner in the trees spied through his tears a pack of grey wolves roaming over the level lands. Waving his hands towards them, he called in his loudest voice, "Hey, grey wolves, don't you come here. I'm caught fast in the tree so that my duck feast is getting cold. Don't you dare come and eat my meal." The leader of the pack, upon hearing Iktomi's words, turned to his comrades and said, "Ah, hear the foolish fellow. He says he has a duck feast to be eaten. Let us hurry there for our share." And away bounded the wolves towards Iktomi's lodge. From the tree, Iktomi watched the hungry wolves eat up his nicely browned fat ducks. His foot pained him more and more. He heard them crack the small round bones with their strong long teeth and eat out the oily marrow. Now severe pain shot up from his foot through his whole body. "Oh," sobbed Iktomi. Real tears washed brown streaks across his red-painted cheeks. Smacking their lips, the wolves began to leave the place, when Iktomi cried out like a pouting child, "At least you've left my baking under the ashes." "Oh," shouted the mischievous wolves, "he says more ducks are to be found under the ashes. Come, let us have our fill at once." Running back to the dead fire, they poured out the ducks with such rude haste that a cloud of ashes rose like grey smoke over them. "Oh," moaned Iktomi when the wolves had scampered off, and all too late the sturdy breeze returned and, passing by, pulled apart the broken edges of the tree. Iktomi was released, but he had no duck feast. And that is the end of Iktomi and the ducks. And I really hope you enjoyed it. Well, we are a little bit past our time. They're two quite long stories this week. Next week, I've had a request for The Princess and the Pea. So if you want me to read that to you, please let me know in the comments. If you want to hear more stories from Iktomi, or if you want to hear another story from somewhere else in the world, please let me know and I'll do my best to find something for you. So in the meantime, I really do hope you enjoyed the stories. I hope you had a relaxing time while you were listening to them. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to the stories and for me slaughtering that bit of the Dakota language. I do apologise, but languages aren't my strong point, I'm afraid. But I tried to have a passing crack at it. But anyway, thank you again very, very much, all of you. And I really, really do appreciate you being here. And all being well, I will see you for our spooky sessions on Friday. So in the meantime, love you. Take care. Bye-bye.